Hello and welcome back to Project Stargate. I'm your host, Mark Brenner. Today we have an exciting episode for you. I'd like to reintroduce our guest host, Greg Ship. Greg, how you doing today, brother?
Doing great.
Today, our episode is the Paranormal Bigfoot with Ron Morehead. Ron Morehead has been investigating the Bigfoot phenomenon from a unique point of view for many, many years. He is accredited for bringing to light many different recordings of unusual Bigfoot sounds. They've been studied by many audio experts, and it's been pretty much verified scientifically that these don't come from from human beings. They don't come from animals. We are truly sailing into the unknown here. Ron, over the years, has come up with his theory is that there's not just a primate explanation, a flesh and blood explanation for the Bigfoot phenomenon, but also he goes where the data takes him, as we do at Project Stargate. The data is actually suggesting much more than the simple matter of a rare primate walking the earth. Greg, I'm real excited that this is going to be a great episode. I think that this data is going to be really good for our listeners, man. I'm glad you're with us.
I'm glad to be here too. I'm really excited for the interview today.
I am too. But anyways, without further ado, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Ron Morehead. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us, and welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Mark, Greg. Good to be with you guys.
I want to start out, Ron. Maybe tell us about why you got into this unique field of research, and kind of go and explain to the listeners, if you don't mind, why you have come up with the theories that you have, and why it's so important.
Sure. Well, this started from me in 1971 when I was invited into a hunting camp with a guy who had this happen to him with the other hunting group, and he wouldn't go back by himself because it kind of frightened him. And if you hear the sounds when you do, you'll see why. They're pretty aggressive. And they were in 1971, very aggressive. And we don't know if they were trying to scare us off or what, but they did this guy. They scared him off. And the guys hadn't come out when they were supposed to, so the wives were worried and asked me to go back up with him. Because they wanted to check on him. Because at that time, you called it the paranormal Bigfoot, but at that time we was looking for some ape out there that just hadn't been identified, like so many researchers still are. Just some kind of a creature running around out there, and we wasn't thinking about anything supernatural or paranormal, other than some strange things started happening. But we thought, well, we just put that up on the wall for a while. We don't know what to do with that. So for a long time I did, and it kind of got me into studying more about what could have caused those things. Alan Berry, who we took into the campsite in 1972, he ended up getting caught up in it also, like we had been. But he was looking for a hoax. Like Ivan Sanderson thought it was a hoax when we told him about it. Ivan Sanderson sent it to Peter Byrne, who also thought it was a hoax, somebody pulling their leg. And when they got a hold of Alan Berry down in California to see if he wanted to check it out, well, he thought it was too. Now, we didn't know any of this at the time. We thought, well, hey, somebody's going to help us here to figure this out, what's going on. And so we took him up there. He captured the sounds. He's still looking for the hoax, trying to figure it out. But he had to get somebody to, he was professional, had a master's degree in science. And he was trying to find somebody that would take on this study and listen to these and give an unbiased opinion. And he found a Dr. Curlin, Lynn Curlin, professor of electrical engineering at the University of Wyoming, who took him seriously, and he didn't laugh him off like so many other people had in the past when he was trying to get help, would look into this. He even went to Ivy Tybal, the guys who studied the Nixon tapes. Now, they didn't laugh him off. They said, this is pretty unique. No, it's way about outside human stuff. There's no 60 cycle hum in it and all that, but they didn't do a full-blown study. And of course, neither did Curlin. Of course, we got hours of tapes, and he just took a part of them that Alan Berry had. Alan had recorded, we was all recorded on cassette tapes in the 70s. That's all they had, portable cassette tapes with battery operated. And So we was all taking those up after this happened, and these things kept coming around and messing with us. And so we was recording, all of us were recording at the same time, and we got the corroborative stuff going on. But anyway, Alan Berry got his tapes to Dr. Curlin. Dr. Curlin did his report, and he wrote a paper on it. And he was kind of captured in it too, because he said, "This is real." He said, "Humans can't do this, and these tapes have not been manipulated. The tapes are clean." Al used the brand new cassette tapes. We go home and put them onto reel to reel, and then use the cassette over again. That's how silly we were. But anyway, he had original tapes. Curlin listened to those or studied them for a year. And in his report, which is written in a book called Man Like Monsters on Trial, which was printed by the UBC Press in Canada, after he gave his analysis at the symposium up there in 1978, I think it was. And anyway, he said these are outside the human range, and he shows a graph in the book about where the sound bites lie, and there's some above our human range, average human range, there's some in it, and there's some below it, which tells me, and tells just about anybody looking at it, reading his report, that they can manipulate or actually mimic a lot of animals, a lot of different sounds. So I hear these reports all the time where people say, "Well, I heard my dog's name being cried out in the woods." Well, but my dog wasn't there. Stuff like that, just crazy stuff. Well, that's all interesting, but anyway, there's a lot goes on to this, and it's kind of led me into what, because Alan Berry had a master's degree in science, he said, "You shouldn't probably talk about a lot of the strange stuff that goes on up here, because no one's going to believe you." That's classical science, like we've all been trained with from 5th grade on. What science is. It's Newtonian physics, which is based on everything being material, physical, predictable, measurable. That's not true with quantum science, but that is a science. Quantum science is only about a little over 100 years old. And it kind of got me into whether there's a science behind this, maybe. So I started looking into what quantum science really is, and it's unpredictable. It's not measurable. And but it's how everything actually works throughout the universe. So it's kind of got me into the quantum Bigfoot book that I wrote, and I started writing that years ago. Started studying it years ago. Just come out with a couple of years ago. So it's doing quite well, though. People are getting hooked into it, because it's the subtitle of it, Mark, is bringing science and spirituality back together. And I'm not saying religion. I'm saying spirituality, because according to Stephen Hawkins, most people know what that name is, and he says energy, which we're all made of, at the most minute level, we are all energy, vibrating at a frequency. Everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. So he says it can't die, it only changes form. So you get into religion, they say, well, when you die, you go to heaven. Well, quantum physics says when you pass on, your energy leaves the body and just changes form. So that's kind of interesting, I think. So it kind of brings those, a lot of things are synonymous in a lot of spiritual teachings that goes along with quantum physics. So I kind of say that quantum physics and spirituality are pretty much synonymous, because you can't figure any one of them out, and you can't experience them until you do pass from this body. So then we'll all know. That's how I got started, and that's how I keep rattling on about it. But we were looking for flesh and blood, because that's what was dealing with us. Whatever it was in our dimension, in our third dimensional environment, which, by the way, there's other dimensions according to physics. We only live in 3, which is what we're doing right now. And anyway, you get into quantum physics, there's at least 10 or 11, or probably innumerable, really, when you get into it. But the math of quantum physics is what determines it, and it's been established worldwide. So for people to say that they can't do this, they can't do that, well, they're only looking within their parameters and their spectrum of vibration, because everything is a vibration. So energy at a vibration. So anyway, you get, I get carried away here. So if you want to interrupt me, just interrupt me and ask me another question, or stop me and say, hey, what about this? Or what about that? Because I'll go way ahead of it, maybe.
Yes, sir.
Everything is a vibration, and something was going on up there that was very mysterious, but we didn't question it, because they were leaving big tracks. We were recording their vocalizations. Occasionally, very rarely, you get a glimpse of one. And we're 8 miles in the wilderness from the closest place you can drive to. And we're 8,400 feet in elevation. So really, it's quite imposing area to get to. And with Al Berry was again looking for a host who could be pulling this off up here, because it's really imposing area. And of course, we knew nobody was, because we checked out. We looked around to see if there's anybody else around, any tracks or anything. The only tracks we found were the tracks of these quote unquote monsters, which I don't believe them to be monsters now, but that's what we thought we were dealing with at the time, was just some kind of a big, very, very big monster of some type that hadn't been scientifically acknowledged.
That's
I'm gonna slow down.
fascinating. Greg, this is fascinating. I think this is going to shatter some people's paradigm as far as a lot of the Bigfoot researchers they do wonderful research, but at the end of the day, it looks like that they're very closed-minded.
Yeah, I've had discussions with a few professors in my former college who like to think that it may be just an elaborate hoax, that something like that wouldn't exist. But I've always believed that there's always some type of species of cryptid that would still be existing to this day. I know I may be unrelated, but I remember a few years back there was a news report of finding certain species of fish that supposedly died out millions of years ago, that were existing in some of these craters within the Pacific Ocean. So I'm always believing that there's always something out there that we still either we believe probably went extinct years ago, or most likely hasn't even been identified by scientists as of now. I'm always open-minded to stuff like that.
Well, what's fascinating to me, with Ron, it seems to me a lot of the data, when I started researching the paranormal and investigating 16 years ago, I started looking into experiences that I had all my life, Ron. And when I started researching UFOs, I started researching parapsychology. When parapsychology, I learned a lot about that. I started learning about quantum mechanics and quantum physics and whatnot. And then all that eventually led me into Bigfoot, because a lot of the data is pointing towards an incredible explanation for Bigfoot. Tell us a little bit more about how the various types of paranormal phenomenon and unusual, anomalous things that happen with Bigfoot.
What do you mean, the creepy stuff, or
all the high strangeness?
What we had going on up there were lights, orbs, but we had also their vocalizations weren't necessarily of a. Let me give you an example. One time we were in the shelter, and there's 5, 6 of us, up to 5 of us, mostly, because one guy wouldn't go back, and sometimes Alan Berry wasn't there. But when we were inside the shelters, when they generally make their presence known outside, and one time we heard our barrels, which we'd hauled in on mules, being tore up, and all our food and supplies being tossed around, and we thought that whatever's doing that, Bigfoot's never done that before. I mean, they had not been messing with our supplies. They just come in, take the food that's left out for them, and then back off. Started chattering, but so we looked out, and there was nothing changed, and that's kind of weird. How'd they make those sounds? Did they make the sounds, or did they just make us think they made the sounds? That's what we wondered. Could they have hypnotized us all into believing that we were hearing our camp being tore apart just to see what we'd do? Because I got to tell you guys, they toy with you. The things we were dealing with were toying with us. They thought we were smarter than them, and we're not in the woods. We tried to rig up camera traps and everything else up there, and they just go around and wouldn't trigger them. And we underestimated what we're dealing with at the time. And again, we were just hunting up there. I became a hunter that year because I was part of the group after I got taken in. And I were friends with them all prior to that, but then I became part of the group and was up there. As often as I could get up there, I was going up and trying to experience this, whatever was going on, and learn more about it, because I realized it was kind of unique, but I didn't think it was this unique. I didn't realize it would come to all this 50 years later. So it went on from 71 through 76, actually, the close in stuff. And that's when my friend and I, we had to shoot a bear that was tearing up our camp out there. And that's when the close in stuff stopped. And this bear was, well, taking all the food we brought in for our hunting trip, really. And we heard a big Bigfoot up behind our shelter. And it's what woke us up, because this all happened about midnight. And we heard the sounds going on, everything being tore up, just like before. We thought, well, let's see what's going on. We looked out there and it was a bear. So we tried to run him off, but we didn't. He went around, and we went back in. There he is out there again. And this happened 3 times. Third time we went out with our guns, and he came at us, actually. So we shot him. And that was the last of our close in stuff. Now, they've been around and different things have happened up there. And the latest thing was 2016, when I was up there, and this orb, this light went by us real slow. It was about 3 foot long, I guess, maybe 4 foot. It was a glowing tube of light, but it was controlled. It was just moving, manipulating through the trees. And that was kind of strange. You don't know what to think of that. You don't know what to do with that. Is it coming after you? What's it doing? What is it? Well, I think it's just a form of energy that's messing around, because there's something going on in that area that's makes it kind of strange, I should say. I call it paranormal, but I think paranormal just means normal that you haven't understood yet, because you get into the quantum physics or the quantum science that could support a lot of the stuff that's going on. You find out there are laws that support that, and it has to be a law, rule, or something in science that support things. And if it's not classical science, which is 1687 Newtonian physics, then you look in the quantum science, if nothing else explains it. Because again, we only see within certain frequencies. Our light's frequencies right here, yet there's frequencies all over the place. We only hear within certain frequencies. You don't hear ultrasound or infrasound, but you feel infrasound. And but you only hear within certain frequencies. And the same way with our olfactory sense, we only smell. A bear's olfactory sense is 2,100 times stronger than humans. Dogs is 7 times. So gives you an idea. A bear can smell right through cans and everything else. It's amazing. They can't see with a flip, but they can sure smell good. Yeah. Anyway, we only see certain things. And for people to say that nothing else exists except what they can see, they've got their head in the sand a little bit.
I think so too.
You can't see. So many people look for what can you prove? Give us a body to set out on a table so we can study it. Well, not everything's that. Now, when they're in our dimension, our 3-dimensional environment, everything in our environment has to obey by the 3-dimensional laws if they're going to be here. Otherwise, they got to get out and be a ghost or something somewhere else. They're just not going to. If they're here, they're going to get hurt or shot, or they have to eat, they have to poop, they have to do what humans do. But I think it's a privilege, and they like to be here, so they choose to be here. However, can they cloak and get out of this? Well, I think they can. If they can change their vibrational frequency of you can change the frequency of anything and change its matter. And that's been established through even religious circles. And 2,000 years ago, when Jesus Christ was here, he could make things happen by changing its frequency. And I think that's what he did when he said, have faith as much as da da da. I got scriptures like that too. I was raised in church religiously, but I'm not religious anymore. But I found out that we all are, whether we like it or not, so spiritual beings that are going to transfer and change into something else sometime. And so anyway, did I answer your question?
Absolutely. That's a really interesting point you just made, because I know the energy can't be destroyed. Energy exists, and our consciousness, what we call our consciousness, I believe is tied to our body while we're alive in this in these 3 dimensions. And I think that whenever we die, I think that our what we call our consciousness is energy, and in fact, it does carry on to some other existence. There's so much evidence that supports it. We've had people have near-death experiences, has had amazing, incredible experiences when they're supposed to be dead, when they have no brain activity, they have no heart activity, their cardiac system shut down. So there's overwhelming evidence to me that supports that what you're saying is true. And Greg, I think he's definitely onto something. Did you have anything, Greg? Did you have something on your mind?
Oh, no, no. I find this very fascinating, but no questions so far.
Okay, well, let's move on. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is as far as one thing I've noticed in your research, Ron. You've been all over the place. You've been to Yucatan, you've been to Siberia, you've been all over the place. I think memory serves me correctly. You've been to Nepal as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been to Nepal. I've been, yeah, like you say, I've been into Peru, Bolivia. Those are the real eye openers down there, where the megalithic structures are and the non-human remains that I've saw and witnessed. And you get into that, the elongated skulls is why I went down there with a group and scientists on two different years on two different expeditions, two different scientists, just to verify what we'd found the year before. And so I've been all over Peru and through the Nazca lines, like but Bolivia, and you see those structures and realize it's something with better technology than we got did those a long time ago. It wasn't the Incas. And you see that, and you got to open your mind up, because how do you lift 100-ton, better than 100-ton boulders up in this 13,000-foot mountain? And you can piece them together like a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, it's incredible. There's no mortar. And you see that stuff, and then you see it's happening all over the world, that same technology. You realize, we may think we're at the head of the food chain now, but I'm not so sure we are. But I know whatever's done those things is incredible, technology wise. And that opens you up. You can't help but think, okay, yeah, something's been here before, something's done this, and kind of get you realizing that most of us just live in our little 70, 80-year-old bubble that we're going to be born in. And we're trained to think certain ways and believe certain things. And without an open mind, you won't get into quantum physics at all, or into what you call paranormal, because you realize that you don't have to see it for it to exist. We could have entities around us right now, but they're not in our environment. They're just in another dimension. And it's a little spooky, but I think that's where people see ghosts. That's where some people see Bigfoot pixelating, going out of form. Some people have seen Bigfoots go into trees, and they thought they went behind the tree, but the 4-foot shoulders don't fit behind a 2-foot tree very well. So you see this stuff happening. You get the native lore going on, the Greek mythology and all this stuff, and look back and out of our bubble and get back into how eons and eons ago different things happened. And I think I'm going to say this right up here, that there are different types of these things. And I base that on the fact that I know there's been aliens here in the past, eons ago, from what I've seen. And I think they're here now, actually. Something's flying these UFOs that our government now is concerned about and watching. So there's aliens existing. For us to think we're the only entities going on is a little bit wrong. Yeah, but I think they probably altered or manipulated the DNA of different genomes of different species. I say that because there's so many reports of the dog man. You got the same looking type entity in Egyptian hieroglyphs over there, and a man with a dog's head, or a man with a lion's head, or you got all these different species. That's in our history is there any core to it, core of truth? And I think there probably is, especially in the Native American cultures. They have a lot to say about this, and yet science won't listen to them, because they say, well, they live in two worlds. What does that mean, live in two worlds? They live in our world when they want to, or they can live in a different world if they want to. And they can change into that, I believe, through vibrational frequency. They have such an advanced vocal mechanism. We didn't talk about Scott Nelson, but he's a cryptolinguist who got a hold of these in 2008. And he studied them, and he came out all the way from Missouri, where he was teaching foreign languages at the time, and interviewed myself and another guy, and found out the context of some of the sounds, and went back and he transcribed a complex language. Now, this guy's a 2-time graduate of the Cryptolinguistic School of Foreign Languages out of Monterey, California. And he's more than qualified to do what he did. He said, these things have what we recorded in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California has a complex language. And it's not an if or an, it is. You don't have to believe that, but it's a fact. And when you hear them stepping on each other and arguing on these tapes, we think they were arguing. We're not sure what they were arguing about at the time. You know, it might have been who's going to eat us. We don't know that. We didn't know that. They might have just been confused about where the salt and pepper was. I don't know. But what was going on, we didn't shoot at them. And we were heavily armed. I got to tell you, we didn't go in there, you know, empty-handed. It's a hunting camp too, by the way. Nobody's really researching Bigfoot up there except me and Al Berry when he went in. We're there but I was a hunter too at the time. I don't hunt any longer. But anyway, it was exciting. It still is. There's still things we've got to learn and have to open our minds up to. But if a person doesn't have an open mind, they may as well just shut the door to learn anything else, because there's more out there to learn.
Definitely is. Absolutely, man. So you've done some, is it true you've done some work with David Pilates? Have you done any work with him?
Yeah. In fact, I took David and his videographer up to our camp in 2018. I've known David for a number of years, and I trusted him because I've had a lot of people request to go up there and to film it and to document it and all that. And I haven't done that. I didn't want to lose rapport with the rest of the Johnsons who go up there and hunt still. You know,
Sure.
They don't want they'd be inundated. I don't want that either. The area would be inundated by the researchers if I let too many people know where it is. But yeah, David and I and his videographer and Scott Nelson all went up there in 2018 when he filmed the site, documented the site, interviewed me at the site, and they did a reproduction of what I experienced in 2016, that lifesaver light that went by, you know, the rod of light or whatever it was. Did a really good job of that. It's exactly what it looked like. And yeah, it's presented in his Missing 411, The Hunted. And I got about a 15-minute section in there. And afterwards, there's a lady on there. There's a professor's wife. I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but she was tree hunting one time. She's seen one cloaking. I say cloaking. She's seen a pixelization of something going out of a tree and over to another tree. And sounded very credible. You know, I've never witnessed that, but I've talked to people that has witnessed that. And a long time, I just kind of wrote them off like researchers would do normally. But I don't do that anymore. No, and I get into quantum science, you realize you don't write stuff off because everything's possible. And that's why I don't disbelieve in Skinwalker Ranch. I don't disbelieve in Dogman. I don't disbelieve until I see something that makes me disbelieve, or understand something that makes me disbelieve. So, yeah, I know David Pilates very well. He's a friend of mine. And I think he interviewed me here last year or year before the COVID thing set in. It must have been the year before. Time flies, you know. Well, I'll sit around and got fat this winter doing this stuff right here. But finally, conventions are starting to open up, and I am scheduled to head for Alaska next week. I'm going to Michigan in May, and it goes on and on through the summer. So I'm glad the conventions are opening up, and things are lightening up a little bit with this mask thing, which I put on first thing in the morning. That way, wherever I go, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hopefully this COVID mess will be over before too long. That's what I'm hoping and praying for.
Yeah.
So without all that being said, have you ever, in your years of research and investigating, have you ever had a UFO encounter? Because the reason I'm asking that is because I've had many UFO sightings. Me and Greg had one together at one time. Actually, we've had my family. We've had UFO encounters for many years.
Mhm.
I've seen many of them myself. And one of the things I'm seeing, and I'm starting to see a little bit more of, is UFOs and Bigfoot. My question is there a connection between UFOs and possibly ETs or extra dimensional entities and Bigfoot? And if so, what do you think? What would your theory be as far as what their connection is?
Yeah, well, I think there is. Like 20% of Bigfoot sightings have a UFO connection. I interviewed a guy a couple of years ago, a very credible guy, and he had witnessed a UFO above this mountain in the daytime and a Bigfoot in the daytime. And so he didn't see the Bigfoot come out of the UFO, but it's all in the same spot. But yeah, when we were having our encounters, we witnessed some big blue ball coming down from the sky, and it was coming down towards our camp, and we lost it behind the huge trees that are up there. So this is all when the Bigfoot activity was going on too. So yeah, I think so. And in 1888, you got the Eureka Times, I think it is, Eureka, California, paper. There was a report about some ranchers and a group of Native Americans who witnessed this small moon coming down and 3 grizzly bears jumping out of it. That's one of the first reported newspapers that I've heard about. But since then, there's been a lot of people report these things are together, and that would. And my theory behind it, could there be a connection, is because of what I mentioned earlier about the different species of different different aliens have been here and are here. I think they're messing with the genome of different species here on Earth. I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a huge hybridization program going on so that their species can acclimate to this planet. And that's what's happening, I believe. They're out there. Some of them, if they're human hybrids, which a lot of people claim abductions and claim there's a hybridization program with humans, that would get them into our form and you wouldn't even know it, but you may be entertaining them and not know it. This gets out there, but then this program's kind of out there, so I can talk like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there you are. Different species are messing with the genome of different species on this planet, different alien species, I should say, to acclimate their species to this environment. That's my theory. And in fact, I'm not so sure that all the species on this planet are some type of a type of a planet somewhere with that species on it. That's kind of out there too. And we may be here just to see what we're going to do about it. We're going to take care of this planet, or we're going to mess it up. Until we get out of our aggressiveness on this planet and our lack of love and compassion for people, we're not going to raise our frequency high enough to change into the form we might want to change into. I think we have to raise our personal vibration frequency up. I think that's why we meditate. That's why we relax. That's why we have compassion for other people. That's why I like to get into that, because I think that's very important for everybody. It helps you health-wise. It helps everything get better for you too, and not just the earth, but also I think that's what caused me to stop hunting. I don't discount hunters. I don't mind them at all. If they're just out there trying to get a head to hang on their wall, that's another story. But if they eat what they shoot and what they kill, I think they should just be thankful for it, because it just changed forms too. That energy goes someplace.
Absolutely.
So there.
Yeah, well, that's really that's an interesting point. We I think this is a good spot to take a short break. But when we come back, I'd like to talk to you about certain hot spots all over the world, and where, like Skinwalker Ranch in British Columbia and other places. I like to get into that a little bit, and also maybe we can talk about your book a little bit, and see if Greg has anything else for us. And this is Paranormal Bigfoot with Ron Morehead. His book is his newest book is Quantum Bigfoot, and his website is www.ronmorehead.com. We'll be right back.
Okay, well, we got 10 minutes.
All right, welcome back. We're back here with Paranormal Bigfoot with Ron Morehead. Quite an interesting segment we had previously. Ron, welcome back. Greg, welcome back. We were talking before our break. We were talking about your years of extensive research, including the Sierra Sounds and a couple places you've been all over the world. One thing that I've noticed is a lot of places where we have the Bigfoot sightings, we also have it's usually a hodgepodge of high strangeness. For like Skinwalker Ranch, places like Skinwalker Ranch, the big Bridgewater Triangle, places like that. But there's also areas they have more Bigfoot sightings than anything anywhere else. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
No, I don't know the reason. I don't, unless it's got something to do with the ley lines, the energy, portals. Portals exist. I've heard people trying to make fun of that because they don't see them. If they don't see them, they don't exist, right? Well, that's nonsense. NASA's been studying portals for ages. It's energy parts of it, kind of like the Bermuda Triangle, things like that. It's just a mystical area. I think probably we've had a portal up there. Maybe it's where the ley lines are. I don't know. But that seems to, there seems to be there's more reports in certain areas. I call them hot spots because when you get reports, but these things can be anywhere. I mean, they're all over the world, really. And they can be anywhere in North America. They're just about every state has reports of some type of skunk manifold, or they got different names for them. They got the Sasquatch in Canada or Bigfoot down here, but they can be anywhere. And if they are energy, which again, what happens to can they change their matter into energy? That's what we're all going to do someday, but can they change it back into matter? That's the question that I still have. And I think that's what they do to become so elusive. And I think they probably live underground. And you go into some of the interesting areas of Turkey, which I haven't been, but I've seen pictures of documented underground cities, basically, and carved out. And when you understand that stuff, well, my gosh, how could something like that be? Well, it is. And if these things are going underground, that's why we don't find carcasses. That's the biggest question. Well, if they were out there, we'd find a carcass. Well, they're looking for a bear carcass, or, you don't even see bear carcasses very often because nature cleans itself up. And I know I've seen a bear carcass on my property in the San Joaquin Valley one time, and it died right on my property. And it was fresh, got hit by a car and came off onto my land. And I watched it. I was going to do something about it, but there's a lot of poison oak around there, so I didn't do anything. I didn't catch it. So I kind of just watched it over a while. First thing you know, there's no sign of it after a year or so. It turns into just bones and the hides there, and then that's gone. And it just, nature takes care of itself. So that's one answer I got for Bigfoot, but that's just one of them. As far as what they do with the remains, and why have we found remains? Well, that's not the big mystery. The mystery is, why don't they come out and shake hands with us and let us know? And if they're such a smart, intelligent creature, why don't they just join us? Well, they don't want anything to do with us. We're screwing up the planet. I got off subject. Sorry about that, but I really think we should be taking better care of what we've been given. This planet is a jewel of the solar system. What species wouldn't want to be here? I mean, you look at what Mars is like, what different planets are like, and I think they have different atmospheres. They got to get used to this one, and they love it here. It's water, it's everything. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's good stuff. So one thing that I've seen in my time researching Bigfoot is I've noticed that a lot of these hot spots are typically, or a lot of them, or most of them, I should say, revolve in North California, excuse me, California, up through the northwestern states and up into British Columbia. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I went even in Alaska, actually. A lot of them being seen up there now. And that's one reason I'm going there next week.
Wow, that's going to be fun. That's awesome.
Exciting where I'm going, yeah.
But anyway, there's a Bigfoot researcher that lives in South Mississippi. His name escapes me off the top of my head, but my family, we're from Mississippi originally, and down in they call that area the Pine Belt because it's real flat, but there's a lot of wilderness and real beautiful big pine trees and whatnot. And there's a lot of hunters down there. And he was telling me about some hunting land he leased to do some deer hunting, and he's had multiple Sasquatch encounters down there in South Mississippi. So it seems like that these entities are everywhere, and it seems like that. I know in North Georgia, where I live, not far from where I live, there's been some. I think there's been some Bigfoot activity up not far from where I live, near the start of the Appalachian Trail. Um, I've hiked the Appalachian Trail, most of pretty much all of it from the start in Georgia up through Damascus, Virginia. I've hiked pretty much all of that, and there's some beautiful country out there. But I could see where how that'd be an ideal. Some of those locations are very remote, and I could see why and how a Bigfoot would probably want to manifest there and try to live their life out there.
Well, yeah, same way here. You know, you out west, you got a lot of trees, a lot of wilderness, a lot of wilderness. I used to fly my own plane back and forth to Alaska, off and on every year or so, just for visiting or whatever. And I'd go through Canada, and I could fly for hours through there and never see a person or road or anything. You know, just so much wilderness in this continent, I guess you want to call it, that these things could be in the hundreds. People ask me how many you think there are. Well, nobody has any idea. I think Grover Krantz said there had to be at least 200 to have a gene pool for breeding, and we know they do breed when they're in our environment. We've got recordings of little ones up there at our Sierra camp. But these hot spots you talk about, I don't know, unless it's a portal of some type where they can actually change or get their energy different, because they can make some incredible sounds with their vocalizations. There was one time I thought I heard a big tuning fork in the daytime.
Wow.
It was huge, like a very big ton, like a huge tuning fork above our heads, but you couldn't see it. You couldn't see anything. We couldn't see it. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. Something made that sound, but we never could find the source of it. A lot of things happened. One time we thought we heard a bunch of horses coming down to where our shelter was from the ridge, and no horses there. Some of our horses, which are tied up. How do they make those sounds, or what's going on? And what's causing these lights to come around? We've witnessed. The Johnson brothers claim that, and I have no reason to disbelieve them at all. They're passing away now. One's already passed away. The other one may have by now.
Mm.
But they said these orbs were following around above their head, and where they in camp. And what are they doing? What's that? Some people say they saw a Bigfoot cloak out and then they see an orb. Well, somebody asked me the other day, what could that be? Well, could it be the energy from the Bigfoot, in an orb? I took a picture of an orb one time up at, because you don't see those necessarily all the time with your eyes. Your eyes don't see it in all frequencies, but sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. But a camera's eyes will. A lot of times a camera will see a different spectrum than you will. And when that happens, you can get a picture of an orb. Well, up at Montana Vortex, Joe Hauser, my friend, owns that, and went out and took some pictures. Couldn't see a thing. We started to snap pictures, and there's these orbs. It wasn't a reflection off a camera or something else. Like, you look for that stuff. We're not a couple of dummies. Well, in our opinion, we're not. But I looked at it, blew it up close, and you could see a design in it, and it had something going on with it. It wasn't just a piece of light. And plus, light does strange things at that vortex he's got up there. I mean, it bends. You'll think a tree's right there, but it's actually over there. The light's bending where it's at. And he's got evidence of that right there. You can see it. It's not like it comes and goes. It's always there at that vortex, which is a magnetic anomaly in the Earth's surface. And it's an amazing place. Anyway, well, I'm off subject again. Probably.
That's okay. This is all about you, brother. Greg, Greg had a couple of questions for you. Greg, I'll let you take it from here and let you indulge with your questions.
Okay. Yeah, I had questions about the Bigfoot speech that was picked up on your in your travels. There were two clips that I found on your website. Where were you when you recorded those sounds?
The prints?
Yeah.
Or the sound? I'm not sure which ones you're looking at, Greg, but we've had a lot of tracks up there, prints that we've looked at and took pictures of, cast some of them. And those ones that you've probably seen, if they're 5-toed, splayed, they're probably ones that are Sierra Camp. And if they're 6-toed ones, there was a one I got a picture of on there that's 6 toes, and that was not an Sierra Camp. That was several miles away. A Native American cast it by a little pond where he's meditating, and he cast 4 of them, 2 rights and 2 left, and they were all 6 toes. Again, I'm not sure which ones you're looking at, but if it's ours, were all the same configuration over the years. 5 toes, splayed, huge, different sizes. Depends on. We found one 9-inch track and with an 18-inch track in the snow. Well, that's hard to fake. There's no tracks going up to it. It's either a little one and a big one. That's what it is. But again, those things just stopped. And that's another mystery right there, is how the tracks just stop. And that's a question that I can answer. I think it's through density. If these things are able to change their matter into energy only, then their density wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be making a track anymore. I didn't believe these people either for a long time when they said the trackways just stopped. But too many people report that. You got to wonder what's going on, because they're all just written off as a hoax by most researchers. Well, nothing can just stop. The helicopter pick them up. What happened? Well, that's where they go with it. But I stopped going there because it happened to me. My daughter saw one. We found the track way, and it stopped. And I mean, it just stopped. And I looked up the trees. I looked over the boulders. I looked everywhere looking for where it could have gone from there, and never could find where it could be picked up. So trackways and tracks are interesting, but again, I'm not sure which ones you're looking at.
Oh, I was talking about the sounds that the Bigfoot recordings there on your site. There's one called Fast Talk and one called Child's Play.
Yeah.
Where were you when you recorded these?
Shelter. The Child's Play one, I was outside the shelter. That's when I got to see one, got a glimpse of one. And I felt like it was a child being reprimanded by its mother. And that's when I recorded the samurai cry behind me, and I seen the big one. I say big one. It was something big moving right through the trees over towards where the other 2 were, very fast. And we was recording that night. That was one of the first times they ever responded to us and reacted to us when we were outside the shelter. Actually, I was reacting to them because they started it all. It wasn't me.
It sounded like one was being chided by the other.
Well, that was interesting. Those were both made at the Sierra Camp, probably 3 years apart. Yeah,
but
they were getting kind of friendly. The cryptolinguist seems to think they were slowing their rapid chatter down to something we could maybe recognize, because they were calling out some type of a question to me, I think, and I was responding with mimicking sound, and I think it kind of tickled them a little bit, because we were trying to copy. I was trying to copy them, and they were trying to say something to us. And I don't know to this day what they were saying. We only know that it is a language by the human definition of language. And when I say the human definition of language, that means something very important, I think, to all of us. Only humans are supposed to have the hyoid bone connected to the tongue with the nervous system into the brain. So when you see something, you can talk about it. That's the sapiens. It takes a 10 or 12 foot stream of words to make a language, cognizant language. And that's what these things have. They have a stream of words, and they'll step on each other. In the recordings, you'll hear that. And you'll hear us stepping on them sometimes because we were getting a little bold. We realized they weren't going to eat us, and they're just playing with us. And so we became kind of excited about it all. We weren't having the fear that we had at the beginning. And I think that's where Joe Rogan mentioned that here, one of his episodes. I was told about it anyway, where he's, oh, if something like that was making those kind of noises, I'd be out of there in a heartbeat. Well, no, you wouldn't. You just don't walk out 8 miles in the middle of the night, in that place. It's too dangerous. And it's also, you don't do that. And he just didn't know the story. He didn't know what's behind it. And he was talking out of just how he would be if one of these things made that kind of noise around him, I guess. And he claimed he could make the same sound. Well, according to the professionals we've had listen to this, no human can do these sounds. They're outside the human range. They're way above, way below, and inside. So that gives them the talent mechanism-wise, vocal mechanism-wise, to perhaps mimic just about anything they want to mimic or make any kind of sound they want to make. That said, now that there may be a human component to them, if there is, then you got to wonder, because one time this buddy and I, we got froze when we walked up towards where one was out of our shelter. We walked up, we thought we'd see it run away, and we both just got froze there. I relate to it in my book as a force field type sound, feeling. We couldn't move forward. We'd go backwards, we couldn't go forward. I don't know how else to explain that, but it's happened to me one other time up there, and we weren't talking to each other. We weren't afraid at that time. I had a scientist say, well, we can't work with your fears. I said, well, we weren't afraid. He said, well, then it had to be either pheromones or infrasound. I've always related that like it was infrasound, because infrasound affects the human's emotions, so, but now that there may be a human component to these things, I don't know. It may have been pheromones that stopped us, because something definitely invisible, couldn't see what was, we couldn't get any closer to that tree where this thing, we thought this thing was. I got off your track subject, but both those tracks, both those sounds on the website that you listened to were made at the Sierra camp.
Okay. And there was something interesting about, you were mentioning communication. You also mentioned glyphs as well. Some type of signs that are left behind by by Bigfoot or by the type of species of Bigfoot. You wrote, or it was put arranged of twigs that represent some kind of language, kind of like Nordic runes or some type of language.
Yeah, I addressed that in my book, The Quantum Bigfoot, because I'm trying to go through people's different, what they're claiming. Now, people ask me if we saw glyphs up there, different structures, and honestly, we weren't looking for it. We just weren't looking for that. So there could have been. They've asked me, your horse's hair were braided? Well, because there's people say they braided their horse's hair, their mane. And I didn't look for that. I thought, well, the horse got wrapped up in a tree limb or something, and something like that. So I wasn't looking for glyphs, but I don't discount glyphs, other than I think a lot of people make something out of something that's naturally done. And some people, maybe they're not, because some of them are pretty weird, but that wouldn't be unusual. I've heard of Native Americans doing that to leave a sign of which way they went to someone that might be coming behind them. So I don't think that's unusual for if they do leave glyphs. I just don't know why, or if it's really happening, because I don't know. I have not been looking for glyphs ever, but that doesn't mean they're not there.
Right. Yeah, it could be something for themselves or for their for other species of Bigfoot. Say, like, don't go here, or is this some sort of a special a safe place for them to or to hunt for? I'm not entirely sure, but it might be some sort of significance for them.
Could be.
Wow, that's really cool. I've also heard, I'd like to cut in here for a moment. I've seen a lot in some of these Bigfoot hotspots, especially. I've seen pictures and videos that investigators and hunters have taken where we have a what looks like a professionally made structure from broken trees and limbs. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's either some Boy Scouts were in there, some hunters were in there, or a Bigfoot did it. If that's what you mean. Yeah, they look like teepees. It's different limbs that fell certain ways or got certain ways that no one knows how they got that way, because nature didn't seem to put them that way. But there's an old saying, if you don't see what did it, you don't know what did it. Well, that's really true. If you don't see what happened or see how that was done by what did it, you don't really know for sure. You can only guess. So that's what we're doing now, is speculating as far as what could have done that. So again, it was either a Boy Scout learning how to be a survivalist, or a hunter looking for a place, or there's maybe a Bigfoot. Something put those together with opposable thumbs. And is that the question you're asking about those structures? Yeah, because I've seen some pretty weird ones, but again, they look too man-made sometimes to put them off to Bigfoot, and you got to wonder if that's the case. There ought to be some kind of a remains in there of hair or something inside that shelter if it was used for a shelter or a birthing place or something like that.
Wow. Last month I had a guest, Daryl Sims, on the program, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, Ron, but he's one of the leading experts on the alien abduction phenomenon, and he has found irrefutable trace evidence of what's going on. I would think that if there was some sort of structure that they did make, like you were talking about, there would be some sort of trace evidence of some kind left behind, hair, a follicle, or maybe some skin cells or something. It'd be difficult to find, but not impossible to find.
Yeah, you'd think so. Again, if they live underground, then they could birth down there. If they're up on top of the ground, which that's where people are seeing them, obviously. I don't know. We've never found anything like that up there, but we weren't looking that well for something up there. I think there's probably a lot of caves in the Sierra Nevada. In fact, I know there is a lot of caves in the Sierra Nevada. So is there a place where they can go to? Because there's some pretty imposing areas where we were at the Sierra camp, really imposing. In fact, we couldn't even get to them. If there's a cave entrance or something like that on the bank of a big, couple 1,000-foot rock bank or something, a lot of boulders up there. Yeah, there's a guy claimed he's seen, there was a cave over on the other side of the mountain where we was at. He didn't know where we were, but he knew there was caves over there. And he's seen wolves, and there's not supposed to be any wolves in California now, at least where we are. According to the Forestry Service, there's no wolves or grizzly bears. They've all gone away. But there's been people seeing wolves there. And we've seen two, what we thought was wolves, what I thought was wolves. And there's a difference between a wolf and a coyote, And my granddaughter, actually, this is after my daughter witnessed one after we found the trackway. Before we found the trackway, they'd witnessed one that morning. And they were not together when they saw it. My daughter seen this one run across this way. My granddaughter, this was not at our camp, this down below our camp, way away, about 12 miles away, but where these things come, we think, through migration. And she was walking a trail over here, and my daughter, oh, Wendy will see this thing when it runs across in front of her. Wendy got back to camp and wanted to ask her if she's seen anything special, anything different. She said, yeah, there's a big wolf. Came right out in front of me and stopped and looked right at me, then ran up the mountain. I said, Wendy, that had to be a coyote. There's no wolves here. She said, no, it was a wolf. I know the difference. And she is a graduate from Santa Cruz State, by the way. She teaches school. And so I got pictures of them. I said, what did you see, this or this? She's seen the wolf, a white wolf. That's pretty weird. I mean, strange. I shouldn't say weird, strange. Also had a couple people in that same area say they seen, well, they call it a pterodactyl. Well, then I hear there's people all over, even the Native Americans say they see the, what they call it, this big bird.
Thunderbird.
Thunderbird, thank you very much, yeah. And that's reported, you hear that all the time, people seeing thunderbirds. Well, I said, well, they're seeing condors. No, had a small pointed head, no, leathery look. It was not a condor. And condors are huge. I thought I was watching a hang glider one time. I was watching one, but not up there. This was in Southern California, where they're supposed to be a habitat of them. And,
Wow.
So anyway, there's actually a guy up here who he passed away now, but he swears up and down this huge bird. He called it a thunderbird. Flew right over his place out here in the woods, and he went to his grave saying that was real. And you got to wonder just what's going on. Are the portals opening up so that at certain times when the phase is right and the vibration's right of everything, the earth and all, if there's portals open up to magnetic force where time gate can open up? Because as you get into quantum physics, you realize that or you believe, if you want to believe physics, and it's a science that's proven, time as we perceive it does not exist. You go out into space away from this magnetic environment that we got, and time will not exist for you like it does here. That's kind of been established now with our astronauts. But in my book, I write about NASA's thought that if you spend 1 year in space traveling at the speed of light, or 99% of the speed of light, when you come back to Earth after 1 year, 227 years would have passed. How do you get your head around that stuff? You know, it
Right.
doesn't make sense to our three-dimensional brains, which aren't working so well sometimes. But we just so much more for us to evolve into. I don't think we're not near as evolved as we think we are. We got more to learn. We got more to be. We need to be more intuitive. These things are intuitive, and I think that's telepathic. You know, everybody I think has the ability to be telepathic if you're human, because I think we're made with certain characteristics about us that can advance us, but we have not learned how to walk on water yet. We haven't learned how to do those things that we're supposed to be able to do. And that sounds weird, but it's supposedly we have abilities that's way beyond what we're doing right now. I know if I could change water into wine, I could make a lot of money.
That we all could.
Yeah, just saying.
That's interesting. That was a really interesting point for two reasons. Number one, NASA has proven that what you're saying about time and space is correct, because what they've done experiments where they had a chronometer on here at the ground control, and they would, when they send the astronauts into outer space, they leave our gravity. And by the time they come back, they noticed that they traveled forward in time a little bit. The second point I want to make is when we're talking about telepathy and clairvoyance more than anything, actually, a lot of parapsychologists are suggesting now that when people use clairvoyant abilities, and I do believe, I think you're right. I think anybody can be trained to do it, especially remote viewing. That's been proven as well by science. But the point I'm trying to get to is, I think that when we are using clairvoyance, I think that what we're doing more than likely, instead of seeing into the future like people would normally think, I think we're just simply gathering data from the cosmic hard drive, from the fabric of space and time. And I think that one of my previous guests, Dr. Barry Taff, we were talking about that. But I think that's a really interesting point, and that's something that really fascinates me. You've made mention several times over the course of the show about the Sasquatch possibly having an underground residence. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's just a speculation we got, because we've never found the interest. We've never been down to where these things might go. I know if you look into that underground towns or cities in Turkey, they found one that could hold several thousand people. That's huge, big underground network, several stories. You know, they had their systems going, and now they're saying that that's underneath the pyramids too. That there's an underground system down there which we're not allowed to go into anymore. But the previous, well, anyway. I don't know that they live underground. I just suspicion that, because if they're wanting to stay in this environment to acclimate, and Bigfoot has been here for eons, so some of them, I'm not sure they're all the same. Like I say, some can talk and some maybe don't have that attribute. It depends on what primate was messing with what alien species was messing with them. But you get into how we're supposed to be as humans, and why we're the dominant factor on this earth right now. I think you got to get into the pineal gland and who we are as a human being. That's very important to couple that and get a coherency going with your own body. And you do that through meditation, and this would help you, Mark, I think, in your challenge here, is get your chakras lined up and meditate. And when you meditate, you're not asking for something, you're just relaxing and receiving. And that's what the pineal gland is all about. I think it's a receiver inside your head. Your heart and your brain has to be in coherence with each other. And you do that through relaxing and get the frequency going so they're in coherence, so that when you feel something here, call it a gut feeling, whatever you want, It's the energy coming out of your heart, and it tells your brain to do something where your brain might try to analyze it and say, no, go over here. There's $1 million waiting for you. We're over here. You got to help this guy. But your feelings say, go over here. And you got to, I think, learn to listen to your heart, because it's the important part of your body. And anyway, the pineal gland, it's the third eye, as you know, the eye of Horus that's been established by the Egyptian petroglyphs and all that. You see the eyeball, and it looks just like the pineal gland. And that's what they call it, the third eye. The dot right here is some of the Indians and natives are aware. And it means you're coupling that receiver into the frontal part of your brain, which I think is what we need to do. But make sure that brain is coupled with the heart, because the heart will lead you into everything that's right.
Agreed. My philosophy on spirituality and science is very similar to yours. I believe in creation through science personally. I believe you can't have science without God. I think that they're synonymous, and that's just my personal belief. And I believe in. I think there's even more of a greater reason for love thy neighbor. I think it is doing a lot for yourself, and it's also doing a lot for other people. I think that's a great point.
You're right on it. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You got to. That helps you physically. It helps you spiritually. It helps you all the way through. Yeah, like I say, a subtitle of my book is Bringing Science and Spirituality Back Together. I say back together because even Einstein realized something else goes on. He just wouldn't speculate what. Like, I can't speculate what either. You don't know. You just speculate. We change forms.
Right.
Bottom line, we change forms. And again, your energy it can't die. So if energy can't die, it's got to go somewhere. And I think you're right about the consciousness. Consciousness is not proven by Darwinism. I don't disbelieve in the troglodytes. I think they probably did evolve, but something has messed with the genome once the troglodytes got to a certain point physically and changed some of their attributes. And we're one of them, in my opinion. This gets me a lot of church people are going to throw me out of the bathwater on this one, but I think we are hybrids because the very special supreme alien gave us our attributes. And that's because you read the first and second chapter of even Genesis, in the second chapter, he still had no man to till the soil, yet he'd already created man. Well, what's going on? Also, God and this gets off into some of the subject, but it's plural. You get into the what it really means. That doesn't mean Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, like some people say. It's plural. Like there's an alien type light beings that created us. Well, God is light. I'm sorry, I get off of some of that stuff like that, because I think it all fits together in one great big picture. I think that's what we need to look at as researchers and as people who want to get a handle on some of this, is open up our brains to realize there's a bigger picture going on here. And it's got something to do with aliens, UFOs, and Bigfoot's part of it. But he's not the big part. The big part is what's fixing to happen, I think.
Wow, that's
I think our whole Earth has got to be recycled here, rebooted or something, because we're in trouble on this planet. It can't sustain. This planet can't sustain the population it's got right now and keep going like it is.
Terraforming Mars.
Yeah. Well, that's supposed to be happening, and it probably will happen. But then we got to acclimate to that, don't we?
Exactly. And how are we going to acclimate to it unless we find a way to fundamentally transform the atmosphere and how things to where things can grow on the planet instead of being a lump of dust and rocks and whatnot. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So tell us, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your newest book, Quantum Bigfoot. Just if you don't mind giving our listeners a little idea of what it's all about.
Yeah, I kind of been alluding to that through the program, because it kind of, I always had to wonder, what caused this, how that happened, how that happen at our camp? Why did it happen to me and us? I don't think Bigfoot is supposed to interfere with us, but they were interfering with us up there. They were interacting with us, but they stay so elusive because I don't know why, other than we're supposed to respond to our own karma, what we're given in this life. Play the cards you got and make the best out of them. Don't be the what do you call it? The, the one who gets hit all the time. Some people all think the whole earth is against them, or they think everything's against them all the time. Well, no, you've got whatever life hands you. Do the best you can with it and try to make the best out of it. And don't think that you're I can't even think of the word right now, but victim. That's the word, simple word. But too many people are victimized. I give several examples in my book about, and I get into scriptures, which I was raised in that environment, but now I'm out of that environment. But that doesn't mean, maybe the reason I was raised in that environment, the reason I ran into Bigfoot, so I could do what I'm doing today and talk to you about this stuff, because that's what I love to do. It's my passion. And I get a lot of emails and people ask me things, and I love to respond to things like that. And I don't mind any question that comes at me, as long as it's serious. People need to understand the background of this, the science has been done by it, and the sounds are real. We were interacting with something up at that camp. And my book can be got ronmorehead.com. That's 10MOREHEAD. Either one of my books. I have another book called Voices in the Wilderness, and it's my chronicle of so many years doing this stuff. And I am one of the older ones doing it still. And I've been doing it 50 years now, and studying it, but mostly get into what's it all about. What is this thing all about? It sure is a topic of a lot of podcasts nowadays. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's a mystery that's still one of the great mysteries going on. And I don't know all the answers. I admit that, but I certainly think I'm putting some of it together with my 50 years of studying it and looking into it since we ran into this family up there over and over. That's what's hard for people to believe too. Why would a family, when people rarely even see these things once in their lifetime, if they're very, very lucky, yeah, we had this ongoing encounters going. Oh, people have a hard time with that, but it was happening. And it's the sounds is what really, the credibility behind the sounds is what makes it important, because we've had the scientific Professor Curlin do this. We had Scott Nelson do this. We've had other sound people do this who have incredible attributes for hearing. And they say humans can't duplicate these sounds, and yet they have the human mechanism to make a vocal stream of words, the morphine stream. So what are they? They could be anything. Hybrids, I think.
Absolutely.
My books, also my CDs are on there, which I produced 2 CDs. One's they're both about 40 minutes long, and one is Al Berry's story, and I got the very aggressive sounds we first ran into, and he was recording up there too. They're on that one. That's volume 1, the Bigfoot recordings, and then volume 2 is I narrated. The first one, Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek: Next Generation, he narrates that. And
Love Jonathan Frakes.
the second one, I narrate and put the interactive sounds in there that I recorded myself 3 years later at the same camp, 2-3 years later at the same camp.
So what's next for Ron Morehead? What do you got going on that? Anything you can talk about that you're working on, you're planning to do the next couple of years?
Well, the filming that they're doing right now, I'm leaving next week for Alaska, so we'll have to see how that turns out. I really not supposed to talk about that. It's a production company, so
right.
And then I got I got to be in this conferences through the summer. The next one I'll be at is in May 15th at a place above Saginaw, Michigan. It's got a convention going on. And then I think I'm going to be in Gatlinburg later on. I'll be in Everett, Washington with George Norrie here in September, I think it is. So all this is coming back now. They're starting, this COVID thing is getting a little more relaxed. And I think people are trying to figure out how to deal with it. So, and all this stuff on my website, if you go to ronmorehead.com, it's downloadable too. It's easy just to download it instead of getting the hard copy. If you get the hard copy, it'll come through probably Amazon.
Cool.
Fulfilled by Amazon.
Nice.
And the CDs, though, I only sell through here, through my own website. So there, I told you.
So, Greg, did you have anything else for him before we wrap this up?
Good.
All right. Well, Ron, it's been wonderful having you here. His website is www.ronmorehead.com. His new book is Quantum Bigfoot. Ron, thank you so much for being with us. And maybe we can have you back on sometime. It's been really enjoyable. And I hope that if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and leave your comments down below. Ron, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Mark and Greg. Good to meet you. Yeah, just as we learn, more and more happens, the more and more things come out. So I try to stay on top of that. I get a lot of reports all the time, and I'll be upgrading things as I learn more. Because I was saying, when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot. So let's just all stay green and start growing, and don't keep ourselves in this little bubble we think we're in.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Ron, and thank you, Greg, for being for co-hosting day. And I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Take care.